inviting UNCRD for this small presentation at the Turkey BOS World Conference. Distinguished delegates, participants, let me first of all convey our deep appreciation to the BOS World Foundation and the co-organizers for organizing this conference. Just briefly, why we are here. UN Center for Regional Development, which is part of UN Department for Economic and Social Affairs, Division for Sustainable Development Goals, why we are here. If you see, UNCRD has a unique mandate of promoting regional development. It was established in 1971, headquartered in Japan, and regional development is a multidisciplinary and integrated approach that address rural-urban linkages, territorial integration, a balanced distribution of population and economic activities in spatial context to achieve the equity, social cohesion and justice. The regional development is also a field that also take into account a number of other fields such as environment, climate change, disaster risk management with other developmental sectors like transport, housing, energy, water and other basic social services. As I told in the beginning, it promotes regional integration including rural-urban linkages, and bus sector, the bus transportation sector has an immense role to play in this regional integration, region-wide economic integration. That is how we have been involved in the BOS World activities, the conference, and BOS World Foundation has been also involved in UNCRD UNDESA activities, mainly the UNCRD-led high-level regional environmentally sustainable transport forum in Asia. So today I will be basically talking about a declaration which was just adopted last year. The Aichi Declaration is a 10 years declaration to achieve environmentally sustainable development through the sustainable transport solution. If you see the transport in Asia Pacific with regard to SDGs 3.6, where we are, over 800,000 people die annually because of the road crashes, fatalities. With regard to SDG 3.9, the air pollution, over 250,000 people die prematurely due to transport-related pollution, the vehicular pollution. Rural access, which is linked to SDG 9.1, 630 million people do not live within 2 kilometers of an all-weather road. SDG 11.2, urban accessibility, 480 million urban dwellers do not have access to good public transportation services and connectivity. SDG 13.2, the climate change, transport-related CO2 emissions are fastest growing of all sectors. And also we should take into account that Asia's transport sector faces a number of unprecedented challenges. By 2030, Asia will be having 51% of the global population, 41% of the GDP, 34% of the global transport CO2 emissions, and 58% of the all traffic fatality. On the top of that, if you look into the transport policies, programs, infrastructure developments, technological interventions, the resilience, the climate resilience, the aspect of natural disaster, these are not necessarily effectively integrated in the transport policy planning and development. So most of the Asian developing cities and countries also lack of state of early warning systems, strong enforcement of different measures, people and environment friendly transport system that actually compounds the existing transport issues. So this means without addressing the without bridging in the without bringing in the transformational changes in the Asia's transport sector, it will be difficult to achieve these international agreements and agendas. They are interlinked and they are mutually reinforcing. New Urban Agenda, the SDG, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, Nairobi Mandate, the Paris Agreement on the Climate Change, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, which is looking for new type of financing to build resilient infrastructure. So without bringing in transformational changes in the Asia's transport sector, it will be difficult to achieve these objectives. So keeping in mind these overarching objectives, the member countries of the Regional EST Forum in Asia Pacific, Environmental Sustainable Transport Forum, the countries last year agreed a declaration which is called Aichi 2030 Declaration at the 14th Regional EST Forum that was hosted by Government of Japan in Aichi Prefecture last year. So this is briefly the Asian EST initiative, if you are not familiar with. This is a unique initiative that was launched in 2004 that brings in multiple line ministries, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Urban Development, Ministry of Railways and Ministry of Health, because environmentally sustainable transport is a multi-sectoral issue and it needs integrated solutions, integrated approach considering all these sectors. And this is a forum, that is why it brings multiple line ministries, because to ensure the horizontal integration, the cooperation among the line ministries. It also aims to promote the vertical integration, the national governments and the city governments, because when there is a national transport policy, whether it is an urban transport policy, that needs to be integrated, that needs to be trickled down from the central government to the local government, the mayor's level, the city authority level. So that is how it ensures the vertical integration. So this is one of the important milestone in the history of the Regional EST Forum, when the governments, the member countries, 25 member countries of the forum, South Asian countries, ASEAN, Northeast Asia, China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, and also Russian Federation are the member countries of the Regional EST Forum. They agreed this IC declaration at the 14th forum. If you look at this declaration, there are 6 declarations: environmental sustainability. There are 3 sub-goals to achieve climate change mitigation, enhance resilience, minimize air pollution. That is the 3 sub-goals under the goal 1. Goal 2, road safety. By 2030, halve the number of deaths, injuries. That is in line with the UN Decade of Action on Road Safety. Achieve economic sustainability, achieve rural accessibility, urban accessibility, and also national access and connectivity. These are all aligned with a number of SDGs, like goal 1 is aligned with SDG 7.2, 9.1, 13.2, also the Paris Agreement, and also minimize air pollution, that is aligned with SDG 3.9, SDG 11.6. If you see here, all these goals are aligned with the number of SDGs, and the Paris Agreement on climate change, with an objective to bring transformational changes in the transport sector. Transformational changes in terms of policy, in terms of institutional arrangement, in terms of technological interventions, and also in terms of financing infrastructure development in the transport sector. If you see which is provided in the UNCID webpage, if you see this declaration, there are a number of strategies that guide the implementation of the Aichi declarations, with which the strategies around avoid, shift, improve, and cross-cutting strategies. And if you see, the goals are achieved through a combination of these multiple strategies. There are 25 strategies are listed here. I will not go through. And the EST member countries will make their own choice and implement these strategies as their socio-economic conditions suits them. For example, say small island developing countries, they will prefer to develop their maritime transport. And likewise the landlocked countries like Afghanistan, like Bhutan, like Laos, they will put greater emphasis on regional connectivity. In choosing an appropriate combination of strategies, country will also take into account what is holding back the achievement on sustainable transport. So in this context, the bus transportation system plays a very important role in providing the regional connectivity and regional economy-wide integration. So the implementation of the 2030 Aichi Declaration, that also calls for a systematic communities of interest, and we can say even the bus community can also play a very important role. So to guide and support the implementation of Aichi 2030 Declaration, its supporters, basically the development community, the private sector, the civil society, agree to develop better coordination and support of the declaration by setting up a community of interest. This community of interest around each of the goals, each of the 6 goals can help ensure knowledge sharing, create best practice examples, developing and implementing capacity building program, and reaching out to the bilateral and multilateral development partners like the ADB, World Bank, JICA, etc. In order to align their development assistance in transport sector with that of the objectives of the Aichi Declaration. And the important is also how to track the implementation of the Aichi Declaration. So there is a new equation that is evolving in partnership with the Asian Development Bank's Asian Outlook process, which has a comprehensive knowledge base around 500 plus transport indicators that will provide the important basis to track the implementations goal by goal of the Aichi Declarations. Those who have participated in the last forum, you see, for example, the ATO provided the baseline report for the Aichi 2030 Declaration with regional status in the annex. In other words, a baseline report that was presented, shared among the countries, and basically the tracking will be done as much as possible using the SDG Tier 1 and Tier 2 indicators which are aligned with the transport sector. And the data for reporting of the indicators will be from the ATO, so the government do not have to do much exercise. The government do not have to put a lot of resources to collect the mammoth data that is required to monitor the 6 goals involving a large number of indicators. So basically it will be done through the ADB's, Asian Development Bank's ATO process. That is how the UNCRD's EST process, the Aichi Declaration, and ADB's ATO will run like a symbiotic process. So bus infrastructure development, this is a slide I just thought of putting here. So with regard to Aichi goals, each of the goals, what we actually need when we talk about the bus system or the bus infrastructure need. In terms of the goal 1, new bus transport infrastructure, and we need clean and green transport infrastructure that allows Asia to meet SDG 3.9 and SDG 13 to combat the climate change. Well-maintained bus infrastructure, safe bus infrastructure, because each year more than 600,000 people die in Asia by road crashes. So we need to think how the bus system is aligned with the objectives. That is a goal number 2, that is road safety. In terms of accessibility, the rural access, urban access, and national access, regional connectivity, the bus system can play a huge role. And because in terms of rural accessibility, ATO indicates that 680 million people do not meet actually SDG 9.1.1, and urban access, ATO indicates that 1.3 billion do not meet SDG 11.2 targets. So every year the annual EST forum, because the EST forum that I mentioned It is held every year, and that will keep track of how the countries will be implementing goal by goal the declarations. In fact, the next forum which we are planning to have, we are currently in discussion with the government of Nepal, and the proposal is to have the next forum to address the deficit in terms of the urban transport infrastructure, the sustainable transport infrastructure in developing countries. So there, I think that provides an excellent opportunity to discuss the bus transport system and infrastructure in the context of achieving the Aichi declaration. Actually, these are very generic slides. I will not present these things, then we can have a little bit discussion. These are some of the issues in Asia Pacific they face with regard to the transport system, and this is also you see the issues we face with regard, or the need with regard to improving the bus transportation system in Asia Pacific. Then coming to the key stakeholders for improving the public transportation system, including the bus system, towards the objective of the Aichi declaration. I just put very quickly this slide here, what the national governments, provincial governments, city governments, industry manufacturers like that who are manufacturing these buses, chassis, engine, etc., and also the operators. I think this slide is not complete here. The passengers are here in the below. These are all the important stakeholders of a bus system and how they could contribute towards the Aichi declaration. Government, of course, policy reforms, keeping in mind the climate, natural disasters, health emergencies like COVID-19. They need to lay out the national policies and programs which needs to be implemented by the provincial government and the city governments through various rules and regulations. Even the national government can promote public-private partnership, PPPs, which is extremely important to expand also the bus transportation system in rural infrastructure, rural areas, because nobody knows who will actually fund the bus transportation system in the rural areas. State, provincial government regulate bus services, fare in line with the people's affordability, improve accessibility, mobility, integrated city master plans, interstate connectivity, walking and bicycling networks, and connecting them to the bus rail system, and also the promote public-private partnership. Mayors can also play a lot of important role like law enforcement, smart city, smart mobility, overseeing route design, timetable, infrastructure development, local tax, SOS, walking and bicycling network, and their integration with the bus system that also city local authorities can ensure and promote. Industry manufacturers, of course, they have a very vital role to play. Today, all these industry manufacturers, industry and automobile manufacturers assembled here, they have a lot of role to play, like vehicle design with due consideration to safety measures, that is Aichi goal number 2, to achieve road safety, and needs of the transport sensitive groups like physically challenged, women, older people, children, poor people, etc. Intelligent transport system, technological innovations and development, customer comfort, safety through appropriate body building, engineering and design, etc. So they can play a lot of role with regard to each of the goals of the Aichi declaration. Like operators, on-time performance, cleanliness, choice of vehicles, choice of chassis, fuel choice, like we are talking about nowadays predominantly the e-vehicles, electromobility, maintenance, local information, safety, security, dialogue with the manufacturers. This is very important. The operators can actually influence the manufacturers to produce the manufactured vehicles as per the needs, the benefits and the interest of the passengers. Route design in consultation with the local governments, onboard medical and fast aid facilities, this is extremely important, and prevention of the spread of infection in view of the current ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. They have a tremendous role to play to design the entire operating system to safeguard people's health and interest. And also they can ensure drivers' behavior such as zero tolerance towards alcohol drink and driving. And passengers, I think it is not coming here, some are hiding here. So the passengers can play a lot of important role like cooperation towards safety and also providing constant feedback to all the above stakeholders like the governments, provincial government, city mayors, operators, manufacturers to continuously improve the bus operation system. So in fact, the passengers are actually on the top of all these stakeholders. So finally, this is my concluding slide. The conclusion, achieving sustainable transport is essential for progress on all these SDGs. Your better accessibility to essential utilities that contributes to SDG 1, efficient supply chain and logistics reducing food grain loss that contributes to SDG 2, safe, clean and low carbon transport solutions that contributes to SDG 3, improve transport access to schools and universities, that is important to improve the literacy rate, contributes to SDG 4. Similarly, you can see here all these transport, sustainable transport activities which are inbuilt in the Aichi 2030 declaration contributes to all the 17 goals. Fuel economy, energy efficiency, NMT, efficient supply chains towards minimizing food losses, post-harvest also contributes to SDG 12 that call for sustainable production and consumption. SDG 11, achieving safe, resilient, sustainable and inclusive cities, of course sustainable transport for all sections of the society, including the vulnerable groups, region-wide economic integration covering the small island, landlocked, that contributes to SDG 11. Similarly, all these are linked to all the 17 goals. So I conclude my presentation here, and if you have any questions, maybe we can, I don't know how much time we have, Dr. Deman. 15 minutes. We have 15 minutes? Okay, good amount of time for discussion.
Coming concrete to the situation where we are here, what role can the bus industry play, and what incentives do you have to the bus industry to incentivize them to play that role?
Of course, you see, the government have to take the ownership of the implementation of the Aichi declaration. As I was describing in the beginning, in each of the Aichi declaration goals, the bus system, the entire bus transportation system has a role to play, whether it is road safety, whether it is achieving resilience, climate change mitigation, or in terms of accessibility, rural, urban and national connectivity, region-wide connectivity. I think bus system provides the fastest and probably the cheapest way of connecting, ensuring the regional connectivity. In terms of the incentives to the bus world, these are very important questions. The whole system, of course, the incentive is a part of the inbuilt of the Aichi declaration implementation, because we expect the governments to translate the Aichi declaration into local actions, policies and programs. That is how our dialogue that would be happening continuously until until the life of Aichi declaration ends in 2030, to continuously to influence the governments, both the local governments, the provincial government and the national government, to let out policies and programs to incentivize the bus operation system. That is why we have brought actually the Bus World Foundation to strengthen the policy consultation around the bus system. That is the reason actually.
I understand your vision towards the Busworld Foundation and towards Busworld, but Busworld is no more than representing the bus and coach industry. So how can we incentivize the OEMs, companies like Anadolu Isuzu, like Otokar, to play a role in this forum?
In this forum.
Yeah.
Sure. I think this is the thing that we have constantly kept in mind. You must have noticed in the forum that we are conducting time to time the donor roundtable. I think similarly, I think it is important to also have the private sector roundtable with the governments. Let the government and the private sector, come face to face at the forum to dialogue how they can actually improve their contribution towards each of the goal. Actually, in course of the next EST forums, that is how we will be designing the program to increase the participation of the private sectors. Because the challenge we face, honestly, when the private sector conceive, immediately that it is an intergovernmental forum, it's a governmental led forum, they little bit shy away. But it is our duty to convince them to come up proactively to have dialogue with the governments, and UNCID is ready to provide such platform in the future EST forums.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mohanty.